back again for our next Last Stand series battle. Same Tyranid as always, and today we are taking on the cream of the crop of the Imperium, the Adeptus Custodes. So these are a very expensive force. It's no surprise. I know if anyone follows these guys, they're quite expensive. I'll throw up on the screen there. You guys already saw the point value of them, but this is what you get for that. I think it's like 465 points. I'll have to confirm. I think our most expensive force to date, other than the Dark Angels characters that went in, but that was all character models, and there were 4 of them for that price, but there's only a few more here. So the Custodes are over 10,000 years old. They were the ones that destroyed the Thunder Warriors, the Emperor's first kind of, I don't want to call them Space Marines because they weren't, but the Custodes are based off of his like actual gene seed, so they have the Emperor within them, and they're extremely powerful. I would still say that they probably tipped the scale over a Primaris Marine, so we're going to see how they do today. And there's a very small amount of these guys, and they're mostly used for the defensive Terra around the Palace of the Emperor. Sometimes they do missions here and there that might take them off-world, but that has to be very sort of secretive and specialized missions, because the Custodes' main goal is to protect the Emperor and to protect Terra. So we're going to get over here in a sec. It's going to be the Custodes going first. They do have some range weapons with their melee spears and axes as well. I think it's going to be a really, really cool fight, and I want to see the tally that these guys can get. They all have multiple wounds, so you can see each of the Custodes here have 3, and then we have the Alaris Terminators with 4 wounds apiece, and the Blade Champion with 6. And they're all incredible in hand-to-hand combat. Great save, good toughness. So we're going to see how far they can make it and what kind of kill tally they have at the end of this. All right, so just want to double check there. It is 465 points for the Custodes for all 8 models. These guys have a pretty good range. The Blade Champion is actually only melee, but everyone else has at least 24 inches. I should say at least 18, but they have 24 inches as their max. So a lot of the Tyranid are going to be in range. My strategy here too is to kind of plink away at the Tyranid as they approach, and then when they get into the facility or close to it, I want to make sure that my Custodes have the upper hand and can take the initiative in hand-to-hand combat. I really want to see how these guys do against things like the Von Ryan's Leapers, even against the Carnifex, or I always say Carnifex, the Screamer Killer. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be the shoot. I'm going to do probably a lot more rolling off camera this time, just to shorten up the video and keep it a little bit tighter, because the last battle was over an hour. I think it could have been a little bit shorter, so I'm going to try to clean this up. But if there's any nice dramatic rolls, I'll come back on live and show you guys those on camera. So pretty good round from our Adeptus Custodes first time out. So I didn't move anyone. I did their shoot, and the Custodes here were able to take out the 10 section of Termagants. So they're all done. Very, very good. Not amazing strength, but the range and the amount of attacks is awesome with the -1 to AP. So very, very good there. And the Alaris Custodians over here were able to fire their grenade launchers as well as their axes into the Ripper Swarms here, and we were able to kill one of the bases and bring another one down to 3 wounds. Their toughness is so high that I'm going to kind of be a little bit, I don't know, a little bit tricky here with them, and I'm going to let the Tyranid, as I said, get in as close as they can, because I think any fire coming in, unless I get some really bad rolls, which I have been doing throughout all of my Crusades and Last Stands and everything, like the Barb Gaunts with their strength, I don't think it's going to be able to penetrate very well. The Turvagon might be able to do something. There's also going to be Spore Mines dropping in around them too, which almost give like an automatic kill if you roll high enough for the Spore Mine. But the Alaris Custodians have a toughness of 7, and then the Custodian Guard over here have a toughness of 6. So any regular weaponry coming in, like the Biovores or anything like that, or I mean the Spore, not the Spore Mines. What are the damn Termagant weapons called? The flesh borers. There we go. So like if a flesh borer comes in, it's not going to be able to penetrate, I don't think, unless I roll a bunch of snake eyes, which is possible. But I'm going to give them some time to just stand back and shoot and try to really get their tally up and get some numbers from the Tyranid out, so they won't be facing as many in hand-to-hand combat. But we'll see. I'm going to be moving the Tyranid now. I'll come back and show you guys their movement, and then we will take it from there. That is the end of the Tyranid move. Lots of models have closed in here. The Parasite of Mortrex had lost its kind of screen there with the Termagants, so there's some gargoyles that have flown over. The Screamer Killer, as well as these Termagants, have moved in a bit closer. The Von Ryan's Leapers are just at the wall, ready to hop in there, so I'm going to have to get something together with that for this next turn, whether I meet them right away or move my guys back. But the Von Ryan's Leapers move very quickly, so they might get the initiative there if I'm not careful. The Ripper Swarms were almost able to get over the wall, but with that 2-inch wall, they'd be kind of sitting right on top, so I flopped them down on this side. Barb Gaunts did not move, so they're going to get the benefit of the heavy ability with their Barb Gaunts, or their Barb. Wow, I'm messing up the names today with these weapons. We'll get it in a sec, I don't know. Then the Ripper Swarm's here, and then our Von Ryan's Leapers hopped over the wall, so this again as well. I was hoping to shoot these guys next turn. I have a feeling that I maybe moved the Tyranid up a little closer for this battle and last battle, so I'm going to have to go back to one of my original videos there and kind of see. But we'll see what happens there, and it's very possible those Custodians could still take the Von Ryan's Leapers out with their ranged weapons, but in hand-to-hand combat, I think it'll be okay. Barb Launchers, there it is. I'm pretty sure Barb Launchers. Anyways. Tervagon's close too. This thing, even though the Adeptus Custodes are amazing in hand-to-hand combat, this thing will be able to probably snap them in half with those big massive crushing claws on the front. Termagants here moved up, but they do not have line of sight. They'd be shooting their Von Ryan's Leapers in the back. These guys, however, do have line of sight, so I'm going to be shooting with this entire 20 section, probably right in here, but the Custodes will get a benefit of cover, and they already have a very good save. And last but not least, I hope I didn't miss anything, our Spore Mine dropped in here, which is 9 inches away from the Blade Champion, and then just over 9 inches away from our Custodian Guards. So it's possible this thing could float either way, and we'll see what happens there. Gonna move to the shoot. I will shoot that off camera, come back and show you guys what happens. Okay, Tyranid shoot phase is done, and I am very happy with how the Custodes performed. I'm not surprised, these guys are so expensive. So the 20 section of Termagants here fired into this Custodian, nothing happened, still 4 full wounds. The Barb Gaunts with their Barb Launchers fired over into this Alaris Custodian, and no wounds were delivered either. Their toughness is super great. The Tervagon also tried to fire in. It has a bit of a higher strength weapon, but was not enough to do any damage either. The only damage actually happened over here after the Screamer Killer, which has a pretty good ranged attack, strength 8, against the Custodian Guard there with a toughness of 6, was able to bring one of the Custodian Guard down to 2 wounds, but they were able to also survive fire from the Gargoyles and also the Termagants over here. So very fantastic defensive turn there by the Custodes. We're going to be moving back over to them because there's no hand-to-hand combat right now, and we're going to start to see how these guys perform in melee, because I'm not going to let these creatures get the advantage. I'm going to turn the tables, and I might actually have the Custodian Guard hop right out and take on the Screamer Killer as a full unit with almost full wounds to see if they can actually kill this thing. It would be the first force that has ever done it. I will definitely be rolling that in the tray, but I think I'm going to start over here first and see how our Alaris Custodians do against the Von Ryan's Leapers with the help of the Blade Champion. I think this is going to be a super cool round if I can roll well. So we'll do the move, come right back, and then get into hand-to-hand combat. As promised, we have the Custodes going right into hand-to-hand combat with the Von Ryan's Leapers over here. I'm hoping that the tables can be turned, that they can shred the Von Ryan's Leapers, because we've seen these things shred a whole bunch of Imperium characters, so it'd be very nice if the Adeptus Custodes could do that back to them. And then over here, might be a stupid move, I don't care. I think it's going to be really cool to see, again, as long as I can roll all right. The Custodian Guard have gone right into hand-to-hand combat with the Screamer Killer, and we're going to see what these guys can do. So I'm going to move over the dice tray, roll all this stuff in there, starting with the Adeptus Custodes, and then I'll move back over to the Custodian Guard and see how they do against the Screamer Killer. Fingers crossed that this might be the first force to kill it, or at least damage it greatly, and then we'll see what happens after. I just didn't want this thing getting into the facility first and getting into hand-to-hand combat with me first and losing a bunch of models and weakening their strength. So taking the fight to them first, I think, is the way to go. And we're going to go over to the dice tray and roll these off. Be right back. Okay, so we're going to get to hand-to-hand combat here in a sec, but I've never played Custodes before, so I just want to make sure that I had all the rules down. So the Blade Champion has several different stances, I guess. There's the Behemor, the Hurricanus, and the Victus, and that kind of alters how many attacks you get and what kind of strength it has. So I'm going to be doing, for this turn, since we have 9 wounds in total with the 3 Von Ryan's Leapers, I'm going to be doing probably the Vault Swords Behemor. So it's 6 attacks. I'm going to grab those here. The camera's over my shoulder too, so I'm hoping it's in focus and in frame. I think it is. Yeah, we're good. So this is going to be Vault Swords Behemor. 6 attacks, hitting on 2+ at strength 7. So 1 fell off. There's also some abilities too that I'm going to get into later that are 1 time per battle that I'm going to be using for both the Custodian Guard, if they're still alive after fighting that Screamer Killer, and also for the Adeptus Custodians and the Blade Champion. So we do have 5 that have gone through, which is great, at strength 7 against toughness 5 of the Von Ryan's Leaper. So this is going to be wounding on 3s. Oh God, here we go again. So there's a 4 and 4 1s. I'm going to check here if there's any ability to reroll this stuff. That's insane. No, I'm not seeing anything here. So hopefully those Adeptus Custodians can... Okay, so sorry, Swift Onslaught. No, that's in regards to charge rolls. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they are going to be able to help out here because only 1 has gone through, which is absolutely... I don't understand what's going on with these rolls. Even the Custodes aren't helping me out here. So it is a -2 to AP though, so that brings our Von Ryan's Leaper up to the 6+ invulnerable save, and it's going to be 2 damage if it can't make this. And look at that, it made a 6. So nothing happened from the Blade Champion of the Adeptus Custodes to 3 Von Ryan's Leapers. I'm going to move over to the Adeptus Custodians now, and we're going to get them going. I really, really hope that we can do something here. So they do have the Castellan Axe, so it's going to be... I'll roll them one at a time for dramatic effect here. So Castellan Axe is 4 attacks, hitting on 2+, strength 9, which is fantastic. So again, I need to roll these though. So we're looking for 2s or more. Great, all through there. And then 4 more at 2+, and all are through there. So that's great. They're also 3 damage per, so it's possible that... I don't want to jinx anything, but it could maybe kill them outright. So this is going to be strength 9 versus toughness 5. So 3s to wound. A couple more 1s. I don't like seeing that, but it's not 2+, it's 3+. So it's -1 to AP that brings our Von Ryan's Leaper up to a 5+. So it needs to make 5s here. This is against the group of them, so we're looking for 5+ here if you're cheering on the Tyranid. And they rolled pretty well. So 6, 6, 6, 3 were saved. However, this is actually enough to kill them. It's 3 damage per. So these are all failed wounds. That is 3, 6, 9 wounds that have been delivered to the Von Ryan's Leapers. They have 3 wounds each. So these 3 here kill them all. So the Blade Champion wasn't able to do anything, but the Adeptus Custodians did finish off the Von Ryan's Leapers. And the tally continues over to the Custodian Guard here in a sec to take on that Screamer Killer. And we will see how that goes. Next up is our Custodian Guard versus the Screamer Killer. I'm just going to stop saying anything because I have a feeling it's ruining my luck here with rolls. But I just wanted to read this as well because it's going to give them an ability to re-roll a few things here. So Stand Vigil is one of the Custodian Guard's abilities. So each time a model in this unit makes an attack, re-roll a wound roll of 1. So any ones that are rolled during the wound, I can re-roll. While this unit is within range of an objective marker, which isn't the case here, you can do the wound roll instead. So this is going to be able to, if I do roll any poor ones like I did with the Blade Champion, they're going to be able to reroll those ones, so that'll be fantastic. This is the Guardian Spear, so it is 5 attacks. That's per model, so this is actually going to be 25 attacks in total coming down on the Screamer Killer. The Screamer Killer has a high toughness. It's higher than the weapon of the Custodes here, the Guardian Spear, but we're going to see what happens. So this is 5 models with 5 attacks, hitting on a 2+, 25 rolls. Here we go. Wow, that was good. So I only lost 1, which is fantastic. And again, I can roll any ones. Oh, there was another one. If I can roll, I can re-roll any ones in this next roll, which is our wound roll. So if any really, roll poorly, I'll be okay. So this is strength 7 versus toughness 9. So we need 5 here to wound. And I can re-roll any of the ones. So I'm just going to pull them out. And then I'll check and see how many 5s we have. So a lot of 4s, a lot of 3s. Yeah, a lot did fall off, but I can re-roll these. So currently we have 6 attacks that are through. I'm going to re-roll these ones that happen, so we're still looking for 5+. And that's good. I picked up a couple more, so I'll take it. This is -2 to AP with the Guardian Spear, which brings the Screamer Killer up to a 4+ save. And it didn't roll great. So we have 1 save, 2 save. Wow, oh my gosh. They may have done it. Let me just settle down here for a sec. So it is 2 damage per. The Screamer Killer has 10 wounds. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. The Adeptus Custodes, Custodian Guard, are the first unit, and this is the first army to kill the Screamer Killer. It has been removed from play, and that is huge. I don't want to jump the gun here, but if the Custodes can kill the Turvagon, there isn't really anything here that can really touch them in hand-to-hand combat. The Von Ryan's Leapers might be able to do some damage, but the Screamer Killer has been killed. So I'm going to go back to the other camera here, or it's the same camera, just taking it off the tripod to be able to kind of sum up what happened there and show you guys how the battlefield looks after that. And they have killed the Screamer Killer. This is a very expensive force, 465 points. The rules of my Crusade or my Last Stand series are no higher than 500, so they're within that rule. And no force has been able to take out the Screamer Killer. So these guys might be top of the list right now just because of that. We'll have to see. But over to the table in a second, show you guys what's going on. And just before moving it from play, it does have Deadly Demise. So I'm going to be rolling a dice just beside it here. And if that is a 6 on the D6, it means it has done 1 mortal wound. And it was a 6. So we have our Custodian Guard over here. He has taken a mortal wound. He is now down to 1 wound. But they have defeated the Screamer Killer. It has been removed. And there they are. The Custodian Guards have done it. They now face a pretty big force. Again, I'm not too worried because a lot of those flesh borers aren't the best for strength. So we'll see what happens. I might just plank off of that Custodes armor. Over here, just to sum up, we had the Blade Champion, which I couldn't believe completely kind of fumbled. I'm hoping that that's the only time that's going to happen all battle, because the Turvagon is probably going to be in hand-to-hand combat within this turn. And then the Alaris Custodes were able to kill off the entire pack of Von Ryan's Leapers there. So it's moving back over the Tyranid for their movement, and we will see what they do. So just a quick correction there before I do the Tyranid move. I was just looking at the Deadly Demise again by the Screamer Killer, and it's actually, if a 6 is rolled, every unit that's within 6 inches of the model gets 1 mortal wound delivered to it. I'm just going to read it to make sure here, because that might also affect the Tyranid. So some models have Deadly Demise X. In this case, it's 1 for the Screamer Killer listed in their abilities. When such a model is destroyed, roll 1d6 before removing it from play. If such a model is a transport, roll before any embarked models. Yes, it's not a transport. On a 6, each unit within 6 inches of that model number, each unit within 6 inches of that model suffers a number of mortal wounds denoted by X. If this is a random roll, so yeah, it looks like it's probably killed a few Tyranid here too. So I'm going to sum that up in a sec here as well. And I'm going to use where it was right here, 6 inches out. There was a 6, so the custodians have all suffered a mortal wound. I've already applied that, so we have 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. And then there's also going to be some Tyranid here that are probably going to be dead. So I'll be right back, and I'm going to sum that up because that ups the kill tally here for the Custodes. So, we're picturing that scene from Aliens where they, shoot the xenomorph and it explodes all over Drake's face or all over Hicks's face and burns him with the acid. That kind of idea here. So the Screamer Killer exploded, or maybe it was just writhing around and slashing with its talons as it was going down. So it killed a whole bunch of models within. So I'm going to do the 6-inch kind of diameter around that, and then we'll see what other models are dead. And there we go. Sort of a crater has, erupted around here. So the parasite of Mortrex has been brought down to 4 wounds. 3 of the gargoyles were killed because they were within 6 inches, and that was 1 mortal wound. And then 2 of the termagants that were on the left-hand side here were also killed. So that adds to the Custodes total. It sucks because the Custodes did take some wounds there with that. But it also killed some Tyranid as well, and that's definitely part of their tally. So far, I would still give this to the Custodes as the #1 force. They're also still alive here, but we are going to move over to the Tyranid now, and it's going to be their movement. And I'm going to have to strategize a bit there too, because over on this side, if the Turvagon does go into hand-to-hand combat, it's going to be a whole bunch of shots that aren't going to go through from the barb gaunts, from the termagants. But as we know, those flesh borers and barb launchers aren't very strong. So I think I might be jumping right into hand-to-hand combat with the Turvagon. It's going to push that wall right down and get into it. And it's hoping that it can kill these guys off, because if not, and they fight back, that might be the end of the Turvagon too. And if that's the case, this whole Tyranid force might go down to the Adeptus Custodes. So I'm going to strategize a bit, come back, show you guys the move, and we'll get into any rolls that are required after that. So the Hive Mind has put its plan in place here. It saw what those Custodes did to the Screamer Killer. The Turvagon has been pushed into hand-to-hand combat by the Hive Mind. It is a very strong hand-to-hand combat opponent, so we're going to see if it can kill the Custodes here. It's going to be in pretty good shape to probably have a Tyranid win based off of that. But if these Custodes can fight back and they kill the Turvagon, or they get the second chance during their next turn to get into hand-to-hand for initiative, that might be the end of it. So we'll have to see. Over here, not so good for our Custodian guards. They were jumped by the Von Rhein's Leapers. The Gargoyles flew in, as well as the Parasite of Mortrex. So they are fighting a lot of models here. I'm not so worried about the Gargoyles. The Parasite of Mortrex, however, a little bit more worried about, and then definitely worried about the Von Rhein's Leapers with those 18 attacks they get. And then the termagants here kind of just moved off in case somehow this group doesn't take down the Custodes. They can start firing at them with their flesh borers. So I'm going to be moving into hand-to-hand combat here shortly, and we're going to roll those in the tray. Also, another spore mine was dropped right here, so 9 inches away from the Custodes, and this one floated 3 inches forward to also kind of, if needed, do some possible mortal wounds to the Custodian guards. So over to the dice tray in a sec. We're going to get this rolling here. Probably going to start off with the Turvagon, I think, and the Alaris Custodes and the Blade Champion, and then move it back over to the Custodian guard, and we will see how it goes. Okay, so this is the Turvagon here in hand-to-hand combat with the Alaris Custodians and the Blade Champion. We're going to start off with the Massive Crushing Claws. It is 4 attacks hitting on a 4+, strength 12, minus 3 to AP, and then the damage is D6 plus 1 if they cannot save. So this can definitely kill them, and then it also has its massive scything talons after that, and I can either decide if I'm going to do a strike or a sweep, and that's going to change out the strength. I'm going to be allocating the attacks to the Alaris Custodians first, and they have a toughness of 7. So I might actually do the Massive Scything Talon Strike, because that's going to up the strength to 9. But let's see here, Massive Crushing Claws, 4+ first, strength 12. Great roll if you're a Custodes fan, not so great for Tyranid, so 3 have fallen off. 1 is through. It is strength 12 against toughness 7, so that's going to be 3 to wound. 3, they did get it. It is a minus 3 to AP, which is going to bring the Alaris Custodes up to, one of them up to a 4+ invulnerable. Oh no, he didn't make it. So roll the 1. This is going to be D6 plus 1 damage, and the Alaris Custodes have 4 wounds. So we're hoping for anything below 4. And it was a 2. So not too bad. That means that our Custode has survived that. So it's 4 to 2 wounds, just changing the token there. And now they're not through this yet. It is going to be the massive Scything Talons and a strike attack. So 4 attacks again. You know what? I'm actually going to just... I always try to fight the best for the Tyranid too. So I'm actually going to do the sweep because it is strength 7, which is going to be a 4 to wound. And it's going to be 8 attacks, which is just more chance of hits. So this is going to be hitting on 3+. Okay. Good again. 3 fell off there for the Custodes, not so good for the Tyranid. We have now strength 7 versus toughness 7, so 4 to wound. Pretty good roll there, actually. So 2 fell off. It would have helped if they probably had that 1 extra, but still pretty good. And it is a -1 to AP here, so that brings our Adeptus Custodes up to a 3+. They've saved them all. So this is going back over to the Custodes now to fight against the Turvagon. So I'm just going to get that all set up, and I'll be right back to roll those. Was just checking the abilities there to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So the Adeptus Custodians actually have the ability to reroll wounds against monsters and vehicles. The Turvagon is a monster class model, so that means that they're going to be able to rewound their wound rolls. So I'm going to start off with the Castellan Axe. It is going to be 4 attacks from the first Adeptus Custodes, and that is hitting on a 2+. All are through except 1. This is for the second. And all are through except 1. So we have 6 through. It also, the Blade Champion is going to have to come in here, but I wanted to do this first. So those Castellan Axes, incredible. They are strength 9. However, the Turvagon has a toughness of 11. So this is when that kind of monster comes in. I can reroll these though. So I need to have a 5 to be able to wound the Turvagon. So I got 1 through. I'm really hoping this reroll is going to help. Come on, we need at least a couple of these. There we go. Nice. Rerolls are super important. I would say from all the games I've played, like you guys, if you were watching my last or my middleweight fight 'em up series there, Marnius Caligar, the reason that he won that is because of the amount of rerolls that he had with the Twin Linked ability. So if you guys are bringing in any force, like looking at Astra Militarum or Space Marine or Tyranid or anything, the more rolls you can get, I think the better it's going to be. It doesn't even really matter on the strength, just to be able to get those multiple rolls in. Because I've had a few people ask me, how do you set up your army, stuff like this. With my next Astra Militarum Mixed Force Crusade that I'm going to do, it is going to have, like, for instance, Krieg Heavy Stubbers, which they're okay strength, but just the amount of firepower that you can get out of them and how many dice rolls, I think that would change the whole course of the game. So anyways, those are through. It is a -1 to AP, so that brings up the Turvagon to a 3+ save. It doesn't have an invulnerable, but it has a regular 2+, so pretty good. And if any are not a 3+, it's going to be 3 damage per. So here we go. All right, so it saved 3. However, 1 went through. That is 3 damage. That brings our Turvagon down to 8 wounds. So I'm going to do that token right now, and then we're going to be over to the Blade Champion in just a sec. And correction there, the toughness is 11. The Turvagon actually has 16 wounds, so it is now down to 13. It's pretty much like a tank or a vehicle, just in, the Tyranid Force, all of their stuff is biomass, like creatures. So this thing is usually a termagant transporter. And it has 16 wounds like you'd see on a tank, like a Rogaldorn battle tank or something. So we're moving over to the Blade Champion here, though. What I'm going to do here, since the toughness on this thing is so high, being 11, I'm going to be using the Vault Sword's Behemoth, which is a strength 7. It's the highest strength attack. So this is hitting on a 2+. 1 fell off. Strength 7 versus toughness 11. We're going to need a 5 to wound. And we got 2 through, so not the worst. It is -2 to AP, which brings this thing up to a 4+, and it's going to be 2 damage per if it doesn't make it. So here we go, looking for 4s for the Turvagon. And it's saved 1, got a 5. This, however, is through, so there is 2 damage that has been delivered, and the Turvagon is down to 11 wounds now. So when I made that first mistake saying it started at 11, it is now at 11 wounds. That combat is over, so I am going to be moving over to the Custodian Guard here in a sec, and we're going to roll all of their stuff, but they are on the counter attack side, and the Tyranid are going to be able to have the initiative first. Okay, here it is. This is the Von Ryan's Leapers starting the attack here. They're 3 healthy, well, somewhat healthy Von Ryan's Leapers. 18 attacks, 6 per model, hitting on 3+. Looks like some fell off. I don't know if it's going to be enough to actually make a difference, but we'll see. The Custodian Guards also do not have the same toughness as the Alaris Custodes, so we're going to see how they do. This is Strength 5 versus Toughness 6, though, so the Von Ryan's Leapers needs 5 to wounds. And a very shitty roll for the Tyranid this time for once, which is great. So there's actually only 1 that went through. That Custodes toughness is really, really helping out here. It is a -1 to AP, so that brings our Custodian Guard up to a 3+ save. And they saved it. So nothing happened from the Von Ryan's Leapers. I'm just going to make sure that I have the correct dice here for the Gargoyles, and we'll be right back in a sec to get that rolling, and then we're going to finish up with the Parasite of Mortrex. Gargoyles are up next. They have their melee weapon is Blinding Venom, so it's going to be 4+ here. Don't know if it was called Blinding Venom originally. I think they might have updated that. It was called like just like Teeth and Claws or something. Yeah, I just want to make sure that is. Yeah, it is. Okay, so 2 are through there. It is, however, Strength 3 versus a Toughness 6. So they're going to need 6s here to wound. Close, but no cigar. So the Gargoyles have all failed at their attack. Last up is going to be the Parasite of Mortrex. Just going to get its card up here. And it only has melee weapons. They have the Clawed Limbs, which is 6 attacks, hitting on 2+. And those are through. It is Strength 5 versus Toughness 6. So we're going to need 5s to wound. Yeah, it rolled pretty well. There was 2 on there. It's a high roll to get, so it got 2. -2 to AP. And that brings our Custodian Guard up to their vulnerable 4+. And 1 has not saved. And then 1 has. So 1 of our Custodian Guard has died because of the wound that he took initially, and then the Screamer Killer's deadly demise. There is also the Barbed Ovipositor, so I'm going to do that in just a sec, but I'm going to remove that model just to make sure that when the Custodian Guard get their counterattack, that it's the accurate models that are fighting back. So on to the Barbed Ovipositor, the Parasite of Mortrex's last attack here, hitting on a 2+. Got it. It is Strength 3 versus Toughness 6. That's going to be a 6 to wound. And it did not get that. This can do anti-infantry 3+, so it would make a critical wound if there's 3+s rolled, but this one did not wound, so we are good to go. I'm thinking this battle might be a little bit longer than I had said at start there. I was going to try to roll less, but it's been a very cool one so far. Sadly, we got our first Custodes casualty there, but I'm going to get everything sorted here, and the Custodian Guard are going to be able to fight back and hopefully avenge their buddy here in just a sec. So the Custodes have faced their first death, and now they're going to try to fight back for their buddy here. So this is the Guardian Spears. It is 5 attacks per, and I'm going to allocate these as per where the Hive Mind wants those. So it could go against the Parasite of Mortrex, could go against the Von Ryan's Leapers or the Gargoyles. So we're going to see what happens here. It is 20 attacks in total, hitting on 2+. And we can reroll wound rolls of 1, so not hit rolls, but these are all, that was a very good roll. A lot less ones. There was only 1 that time, which was great. I do have to fight against something though, so I'm going to allocate. Yeah. We have a lot of attacks through. I'm going to try to kill those Von Ryan's Leapers. I'm just going to do that. So usually, and I don't know if this is the case, I might be thinking of 30k rolls here, but if you're in hand-to-hand combat, you can allocate the wounds to specific models, but I think since this is a mix mash of enemies, I'm going to have to choose one to fight against. So I am going to choose the Von Ryan's Leapers for these attacks. And that means that these attacks also just can't be, passed around for the entire Tyranid group that's there. Like the Custodians have turned around, they've put all of their
fight into the Von Rein's Leapers. So this is the Von Rein's Leapers that are taking the brunt of this. And if any wounds are allocated, it's to them, and they won't carry through to anything else. So we have Strength 7 versus Toughness 5, 3s to wound, and I can reroll rolls of 1 here. That's going to help because I have 1, 2, 3. We needed 3s, so the 2s are going to be removed. Can't roll those, sadly, unless they were in an objective game, but lots of 3s through. We're going to reroll. Oops, lost a couple dice. Let me get them. I'll just grab this one here. So we're going to reroll these ones that happened, and we are hoping for a 3+ from these. Fantastic. So 3 dropped have become 3 wounds, and this is going to be a -2 to AP, which brings our Von Rein's Leaper up to that 6+ invulnerable. It's got to make 6s here, and whatever 6s are not made, it is 2 damage per. A lot of 6s. That's a pretty good roll. It's enough to kill them, but they definitely put up a fight there, so they weren't going down easy. They needed 6s, so this is 2, however, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. There is 9 wounds in total for those Von Rein's Leapers, and I think maybe 1 was even wounded. I don't recall, but they have been killed, but that was a lot of 6s rolled. So the kill tally for the Custodes continue, and they've killed those 3 Von Rein's Leapers. So I'm going to go back to the other camera, sum that one up, and this is going very well for the Custodes. If they can take care of some of these bigger models right now, like the Turvagon that's left, they might be wiping out this whole board. So we'll see what's going on. Be back in just a sec on the other camera. Absolutely fantastic turn by the Custodes, and that was actually the Tyranid turn. So these guys are definitely worth the point value. This is the force. I've never seen a force like this so far in all of our last stand. These guys have been able to wipe out both packs of the Von Rein's Leapers, the Screamer Killer, and then tons of random models, a whole section of Termagants, and it's not over yet. So the Custodian Guard are going to be doing some shooting there in just a sec, I think, because I just saw them, counterattack a whole bunch of hand-to-hand combat attacks. So if it happens again, I'm going to rely on that. Over here, however, I don't want this Turvagon getting into hand-to-hand for the initiative. So I'm actually going to be moving these guys into hand-to-hand right away to make sure that, first off, they can't be shot at because they're locked in hand-to-hand combat. And you never know with that many shots coming in. We have like 40 Termagants, Barb Gaunts, all that stuff. I want to make sure that no little cheapsy wounds get through. So I'm going to take that away from the Tyranid, and I'm going to get into hand-to-hand combat right away. And that now does not allow for the Barb Gaunts to fire, Termagants can't fire, and the Biovore still can, but that's a different story. And then down here, I don't really see any of the models here taking these guys in hand-to-hand combat, whether they get the initiative or not. So I could be wrong, but from what I've seen so far with our dice rolling and the ability to re-roll a lot of stuff, it's been fantastic. So we're going to be doing the shoot phase now for the Custodes. I'm going to do that off camera, come back, show you guys what's happened, and then we're going to move into hand-to-hand combat for the Alaris Custodes Blade Champion versus the Turvagon. That concludes the Custodes shoot phase. Not the most strength in their weapons. It's a strength 4, but they are able to deal some damage. I also use something called the Sentinel Storm, which is one of their abilities. So once per battle, so I can't use it again, but once per battle in your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, it can shoot again. So I used that this time, and in doing so, I was able to remove almost the entirety of the gargoyle section. So there's only 2 left for the first shoot, and then the second shoot was all put into the Parasite of Mortrex, which is the warlord for this Tyranid force, and it has also been killed. So absolutely fantastic, and I really don't see anything on this side of the table being able to take these guys out in hand-to-hand combat. And with the shooting, the flesh borers that they both have do not really have a high enough strength to penetrate that toughness. So I think this side of the table for the Tyranid is going to fall. The Spore Mines are still creeping across, so if they get close enough and those Custodes have to go back into the base, they might be facing some mortal wounds there. But the Ripper Swarms, they might be able to get some attacks in, but they have a strength 2. The Barb Launchers, however, have a lot of firepower there, so even if I don't roll great, there's still probably going to be some shots that get through if I get a numerous amount of shots. but absolutely fantastic so far by the Custodes. They are definitely number one so far in the Last Stand series, no question at all. And now we're going to go over the dice tray and see what happens here. The Alaris Custodians with the Blade Champion have the initiative against the Turvagon, and the Turvagon has 11 wounds left. So if they can kill it, I don't think there's anything on this table that's going to be able to stop them. So we'll see what happens. It's got a very high toughness, though, and a lot of wounds. So let's go to the dice tray and figure out what happens. Alaris Custodians and Blade Champion versus the Turvagon here. So the Castellan Axes, 4 attacks, 2+ to hit. The ability also here to be able to reroll against monsters for the wound roll. So we're going to roll for each of these guys one at a time for dramatic effect. So here we go, 2 pluses. All through for the first, second Alaris, all through as well. So they got 2 pluses everywhere. Strength 9 versus toughness 11. So this is that damn Turvagon toughness here. We're going to need 5s to wound, but I can reroll these. And I'm glad I can because everything fell off except for 1. So looking for 5s here. Yep, picked up a couple more. I'll take it. Not amazing, but better than having just 1 roll across there. So it is -1 to AP, bringing the Turvagon up to a 3+ save. Wow. Okay, so it saved 1. This, however, is 3, 6 wounds. So it is down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 wounds left. And the Blade Champion still has to go. So we're going to get that going in just a sec. Blade Champion is up next. Didn't have a great round the first time there, hoping for better this time. So Vault Swords Behemoth is the stance or the skill that I'm using here. It's 6 attacks hitting on a 2+. 1 fell off, so that's better than last time. I think that was all a bunch of 1s. It is Strength 7 versus Toughness 11 though, so I'm going to need 5s here to wound. No rerolls either. You got 2 through, not too bad. It is a -2 to AP, which brings our Turvagon up to a 4+. It saved both. So if that had not happened, it would have been 2 additional wounds, and that Turvagon, 2 each, that would have been down to 1 wound. But the Turvagon is able to fight back here, and we're going to get that going in just a sec. He's going to be putting his attacks towards the Alaris Custodians, I believe, because they've been giving him the most trouble. And we're going to get to that right now. So it's going to be the Massive Crushing Claws, 4 attacks hitting on a 4+. Oof, 2 fell off. Strength 12 against toughness 7, so 3s to wound. Wow, another 1 fell off. The Tyranid are not rolling well this time, so maybe the Emperor is really shining down on these Custodes. I don't know. So it is going to be -3 to AP, however. That brings our Alaris Custodians up to a 4+ invulnerable. And they rolled a 5. So nothing's happened from the Massive Crushing Claws, which is the highest strength of the Turvagon. It also has a damage of D6 + 1. So every attack that gets through there has the capability of doing 7 damage, but that is not the case this time. We're now going to move over to the Massive Scything Talons. Last time I used the Massive Scything Talons with Sweep. This time I'm going to use it with Strike, and that's just because I'm going to get better armor penetration and better damage. So this is hitting on 3+. 1 fell off there. Wow. Again, not rolling great. It is Strength 9 versus Toughness 7, so 3s to wound here again. And 1 more fell off. -2 to AP, which brings our Alaris Custodians up to a 4+. And 1 has not saved, so this is going to be... Oof, there's enough actually here if this is a 6 to kill both of them. So we're hoping for anything less than a 6. Because the damage is D6 per wound that's gone through. 1 has gone through, so here we go. And it's a 6. Shit. So that means that both of our Alaris Custodes, they've been fighting super valiantly, but 1 had 2 wounds remaining, and 1 has 4 wounds remaining, so that is 6 in total delivered to that unit from the Massive Scything Talon strikes. You can just see this thing like coming down with arrowhead talons that are super powerful and strong, and that's killed 2 of the Alaris Custodians. So now the Blade Champion's on that side alone. There we go. So the tide might finally be turning in the favor of the Tyranid. I was really hoping if those Adeptus Custodians had taken this thing out. I don't think there's much on the board left that could have killed them, but it's back over to the Tyranid now. This Turvagon is going to be putting all of its attacks into the Blade Champion solely. And there's still Spore Mines floating around here. These Custodian Guard, I think, are going to be able to clean up this side here. I can't do that double shoot thing that I did last time, the Sentinel Storm, whatever it was called. But they can still shoot, and then to get themselves all the way across the base here, they're going to be taking a lot of shots from the Barbgaunts, from the Tervagants possibly, and then probably facing this Tervagon at the end. So I'm going to move the Tyranid now. It's back over to their move, and I will show you what has happened, and it's also going to be the Tyranid shoot also. So there's going to be a lot of rounds coming down on these last models, especially the Custodian Guard. The Blade Champion is going to be right in hand-to-hand, though, I think. But I'll be right back and show you guys the move of the Tyranid. Tyranid move is done. The Barbgaunts have the Custodian Guard in range now and also in line of sight. No cover either because it's just over the corner there, so it can kind of shoot them in the back of the head. They did lose their heavy ability, so it's going to be a little bit harder for these to shoot, but if they roll high enough, they're going to get a lot of shots, so it won't really matter. Termagants here stayed, but they're going to be firing with their flesh borers, as will the Gargoyles, into the Custodian Guard as well. The Ripper Swarms have moved up the side wall here, and they're also going to try to get into hand-to-hand combat as soon as they can. The Spore Mines have floated up 3 inches and 3 inches, so if those Custodian Guard have to come around this way, they're going to be getting into it. If they have to go back through the facility, they're going to be running into Spore Mines. The Ripper Swarms here also jump the wall to be able to, wheel in around here if they have to. And last but not least, the Tervagon moved into hand-to-hand combat with the Blade Champion, who is the lone model over here, and the Tervagon is getting the initiative. These Termagants stayed, and that's just to have range there if the Custodian Guard have to come over and help out. And then these Termagants moved up 6 inches to lessen the range if the Custodians do make it back through the facility. Last but not least, well, we haven't done the shoot yet. I'll start with that, but the Tervagon is going to be firing its final Spore Mine into the facility. The rule with that is it has to be at least 9 inches away from any enemy models. So that would either be the Blade Champion or the Custodian Guard. And the Hive Mind is not stupid, so it's probably going to drop one in here as close as it can to make sure that if these guys try to beetle back through the facility, that they get blown to pieces by the chitin that comes off the Spore Mine fragmentation when it explodes. So shoot phase, I'm going to roll all those in the tray, come back, and I'm really hoping that these Custodian Guard will be able to weather the fire. And then last but not least, we'll get this one on camera. The Tervagon is going to be fighting against the Blade Champion, and if it can't kill the Blade Champion, very possible that the Blade Champion rolls well enough that it can kill the Tervagon. So some very, very cool stuff coming up in this next phase. It's been a fantastic battle so far, tons of fun. And the Custodes are definitely living up to their name. They're the best the Imperium has. So here we go over to the shoot, and I'll be right back to show you guys that. Tyranid shoot has concluded. The last Spore Mine was dropped right in here, 9 inches away from the Custodian Guard. The others are starting to float towards them, and they can do some pretty big damage, so I'm going to have to deal with those soon. On this side here, the Termagants fired with their flesh borers, as did the Gargoyles, and they were able to wound one of the Custodian Guard. So the guy right here closest to us is down to 1 wound. The remaining all have 2 after that deadly demise from the Screamer Killer. The Barbgaunts also fired. They rolled pretty well. They got about 14 shots, something like that, and it just didn't have a high enough toughness to penetrate. But they're still there, and they're going to be getting the benefit of the heavy ability next turn. So it was a 4+ ballistic skill for them this time around. Next time it's going to be a 3+ because they're not going to move, and they should have the Custodes in range and in line of sight, whether they decide to move this way or out front. So they're kind of pinned right now, those Custodian Guards, unless they want to back up and get exploded by Spore Mines. So we're going to have to see what happens. Now, however, over to the dice tray to see what happens here. The Tervagon taking initiative against the Blade Champion. And this is going to be one hell of a fight. Hopefully not the end of the Blade Champion, but we will see what happens. Tervagon's attack. There are no Adeptus Custodians this time to take the brunt of those attacks with their 7 toughness. So now it's all on the Blade Champion with a toughness of 6. And that's going to help the Tervagon massively in regards to rolling to wounds. So it is 4 attacks with the Massive Crushing Claws, hitting on a 4+. It has to get the attacks through though, and 2 fell off, so 50%. It is strength 12 versus toughness 6. So this is 2s to wound. Got both. Not good. The Blade Champion does have that 4+ invulnerable. So the Crushing Claws usually have a -3 to AP. That's not going to count. But in this case, it's only the invulnerable. So it is a 4+. Oh no, that's not good. So there has been at least 2 wounds delivered. It is D6 +1 per. So we're hoping for the lowest possible rolls here. If you're on the side of the Custodes, and you're hoping for the highest possible here for the Turvagon. So whatever happens here, this is the wounds that are allocated to the Blade Guard veteran. So D6 +1 for the first attack through. It is a 5 +1, 6. That is enough. The Blade Champion has fallen. And just to see what happened there, it is, yeah, so 5 + 7, we have 11 attacks through initially. Well, he's dead. So that's the end of the Blade Champion. Hell of a fight without those Alaris Custodians there to back him up. I don't know. He was okay in the fight. Maybe if I was fighting with the Adeptus Custodes, I wouldn't take him because he has no range. But he did okay. He was all right in hand-to-hand. But he has fallen to the Turvagon, and now it is back over to our remaining Custodian guards for their turns. There we go. The aftermath of that fight, the Turvagon was able to snip the Blade Champion in half. Still has 5 wounds remaining. They did a great job at fighting this thing, though. They brought it down to 5 wounds from its 16 that it originally has. So absolutely phenomenal by the Alaris and by the Blade Champion. We're going back over here now to the move for our Custodian Guard, and I'm going to have to be very smart here because I don't want to go backwards or I might get exploded, and if I go forwards, I'm going to be right in the open field for these Barb Gaunts and anything else that's ranged. So the kill tally is number 1 here, so if I am in range, I might get into hand-to-hand combat so they can't shoot me. Try to take out these 2 last gargoyles, and then they will be open, but that won't be until at least they've got 2 more kills, hopefully. So I'm going to do some thinking here, come right back and show you guys what the Custodian Guard have done. Custodian move is done. They have moved away from the side of the wall there to get some space between them and the Spore Mines. The Barb Gaunts still have them in line of sight. They're a little bit taller, so they can actually shoot over that wall and see them. And then they're going to lay some fire down on the Gargoyles and the Termagants. They have a 24-inch range attack. I don't have that ability to do the Sentinel Storm again, but I can definitely try to take out at least 1 more unit before I start taking some shots. And even with the shots coming in, these guys might be able to weather it with that toughness of 6. So I'm going to move over to the shoot. I'll do that in the tray, and I'll come right back and show you guys what Tyranid models have died and who I decided to shoot at. Okay, so the Custodian Guard fired into the group here that had the most numbers to make sure that there's not going to be attacks getting through with possibly good rolls. So they have killed that section of Termagants. The ability to reroll the ones on the wound roll was fantastic. It got me an additional 2 attacks through that in turn did 12 damage to the Termagants. There was only 8 of them, so they are gone. So it is back over to the Tyranid here. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen for them to move over. So I might actually do a couple turns here just off camera because the Turvagon might be the only thing that can actually get over here. And then I'll try to sum all that up so I'm not going back and forth between little tiny movements by the Tyranid. There is their shoot phase after as well. So those Barb Gaunts are going to be putting some firepower down on the Custodian Guard as well as the 2 remaining Gargoyles. And we're going to just move here, and then I'm probably going to do the shoot as well and come back and show you guys what's happened. I'll start from the back here and sum up the Tyranid move and the shoot as well, all done off camera there. So the Turvagon is moving up its 8 inches to rush in to try to get into hand-to-hand. The Termagants here moved up to fill up that hole in case the Custodian Guards have to come through. The Spore Mines floated up 3 inches each. The Ripper Swarms moved up here. The Barb Gaunts fired all of their shots. They got 17 shots in total. The Gargoyles fired, but that toughness 6 of these Adeptus Custodes was fantastic, and no wounds or damage was allocated. So they didn't really even have to make, I think they made 2 saves, and it was more than the 2+, so they were good to go, and these weapons don't have an AP. So I think it's going to come down to the Turvagon busting ass here to get across the board to get into hand-to-hand combat with these guys to take them out. But that's also very risky for the Tyranid because these guys are also very good in hand-to-hand combat. They killed the Screamer Killer. So it's back over to the Custodes now, and we are going to do their move and their shoot. And I'm going to have to Keep in mind these spore mines are floating ever closer to exploding, and they don't have too much space left, so they might have to kill these gargoyles after a move to get away, and then they're going to open up a bit of that board, because if they get cornered here, the Turvagon could be after them as well as the spore mines in time. So over to the Custodes move, and I'm going to do their shoot as well, and then come back and sum up everything in one go. Custodian guard moved, and you know what? The Barbgaunts were actually in range, so they fired at the Barbgaunts, and they were able to kill 2 of them, which adds to the tally, and it's another unit that has been killed during this fight. The Gargoyles are here. I didn't think of them to be much of an issue, because if they do fly into hand-to-hand, I think I'll be able to rip them apart, and if they shoot, they probably can't penetrate that toughness. I'm probably going to shoot though, because we want those Barbgaunts to be able to get shots back in. So it's going to be back over the Tyranid here. I'm going to do a chunk again of the move and the shoot, and I will come back and show you guys what's happened. The Turvagon's going to take a few turns to move up here, but the shoots, at least I can sum that up from the Barbgaunts and from the Gargoyles, and any movement that they've done as well. So I'll be right back with both of those, and we'll sum it all up. So there's actually quite a bit of movement there, and I should cover it before I forget anything. So my Biovore, for the first time in all of these Last Stand series, has actually had to move. So this thing does have a weapon that's not just firing spore mines. It actually has a cannon, because it's the artillery piece for the Tyranid. And it's got a 48-inch range, and it's in direct fire. So it can actually drop rounds down on top of the Adeptus Custodes. Right now it's out of range, but by the next turn, mattering where the Custodes have gone, it might be in range. These termagants are going to stay back to protect it, just in case if the Custodes make it through this entire, gauntlet of creatures. The Turvagon has moved up on top of the roof to use its stinging salvos. It's actually going to be able to put some rounds down as well, and it's a pretty good weapon. The spore mines are floating ever closer there. They each moved up 3 inches, and they are getting close with the Custodes pinned. We'll see what happens there. The Ripper Swarms have moved up around the corner. The Barbgaunts now have 3 models, but they are in line of sight. They have not moved, so they're going to get the heavy ability this time too, so that's going to probably be more shots on the Custodes that get through. And then the Gargoyles moved back to stay away from hand-to-hand combat, and they're also going to be able to shoot. So I'm going to roll all of those shoots in the dice tray, and I'll be right back, and hopefully the Custodes are still going. We'll see what happens. These Custodian guards will not go down. That toughness and their save on top of that, it didn't matter. There was no saves that actually had to be made here, because nothing could penetrate the toughness. So they just took shots from an 8-attack Turvagon Stinger Salvo. They took shots from Fleshboar Gargoyles. They took not as many, but 7 shots from the remaining Barbgaunts with the Barb Launcher, and nothing even penetrated. So there's no need to make a saving roll. I had a garbage roll with the Stinger Salvos. I think I got only 1 shot through from the 8. The rest were 2s, and you needed 3 to hit. But these guys are still going back over to them for their move and their shoot, and they're going to be definitely wiping out a few more models off of this board before they're done. The kill tally continues of unit kills for the Adeptus Custodes. They just finished off the 2 remaining Gargoyles here. I wanted to put in some rounds and just finish them off, because they were being a little annoying. That is it for the Custodes. They were able to wipe them out no problem, and it's back over to the Tyranid here for the move. I'm going to see what that Biovore can do from far away, but the Turvagon is also getting closer to hand-to-hand, and there's some models that will be in hand-to-hand soon. So we're going to move them. I'm going to see if there's any shoots required, roll that, and then I will come back and sum it all up. Tyranid move and shoot is done. The Biovore moved up another 5 inches, and it's still just out of range, about 2 to 3 inches short of that 48-inch attack that it has. And that's because the Custodes moved their last turn just a little bit. So the Turvagon came right up to the wall. It fired its stinging salvos. The Ripper Swarms are just out of range. They do have a spine maw attack that's 6 inches. However, the Barbgaunts were in range, and they were actually able to kill the Custodian guard that had the 1 wound remaining. So they got a very good roll, both with the hits as well as with the wounds. And there was a 1 rolled from the attack, so that 1 Custodes is dead. It's going to be back over to the Custodes now, and with those spine maws, there's actually a strength 3 to them, so there's a possibility that they might be able to roll okay. So I think I'm going to turn my attention over to the Ripper Swarms here and probably shoot them, because I don't want to move forward and get into range of the Biovore and then even closer to the Turvagon. So I'm going to do the move off camera for the Custodes, if there is one, and then the shoot, and I'll show you guys what happened to the Tyranid. So very quick move by the Custodes, only 3 models left to move. So they moved back about 2 inches just to try to stay out of range of a lot of stuff. They put their firepower into the Ripper Swarms so they don't have that spine maw that's coming down on them. And they were able to kill 1 base and then drop 1 down to 2 wounds. So it's back over the Tyranid here as previous. I'm going to move them and do any shoots and come back and show you guys how many Custodes are remaining. Hopefully all of them, but we will see. Biovore moved up a little bit more, still just out of range because those Custodes moved back. So this next turn, I think it's going to be in range. I'll show you guys what happened. Even Custodes can start to get tired, and there was one that was killed by the attacks of the Barbgaunts and the stinging salvos of the Turvagon. So the Barbgaunts took the Custodes down to 1 wound, and then the Turvagon fired and took him out. So there's only 2 remaining. The Ripper Swarms were not able to do much, but they're kind of doing a pinning motion right here because I don't want to waste hand-to-hand combat phase on Ripper Swarm bases. We'll see, that might be the only thing I have here. I think I'm just outside of range of the Turvagon because the Hive Mind was very smart. It saw that these Custodes are really good in hand-to-hand combat, so it moved the Turvagon just in range, outside of range, of the hand-to-hand combat attack by the Custodes, and it was still in range with its stinging salvos. So I think the Custodes' only option is to go into hand-to-hand combat here with Ripper Swarms. So that's going to happen to try to get that tally up a little bit more before they're done. So that's it. I am going to roll this off camera, come back. Hopefully these 2 Ripper Swarms are dead. If not, they'll be able to fight back with their little teeth and claws. I don't know how much that's going to do. But the Turvagon might now actually be in range to get in hand-to-hand combat, but we'll figure that out after this hand-to-hand combat phase. And hopefully they can kill these 2 bases and up their kill tally just a little bit more before they go down. Another quick turn by the Custodes, but they were able to up that kill tally just a little bit more. They dealt 12 wounds, or I should say 12 damage to the remaining Ripper Swarms that were there, so they were killed outright. Now it is going to be back over to the Tyranid. And if this is within 8 inches, I have to play this really smart, because if the Turvagon cannot kill these guys, I don't think they have a chance now anyways, just because there's only 2 of them left, and there's going to be a lot of firepower coming down on them. So some lucky rolls are going to get through and some poor saves are going to happen. The Turvagon has 5 wounds though, so if they are able to counterattack, they might kill the Turvagon outright, and then that is the last bit of hand-to-hand combat that the Tyranid have. I don't think I'm at that stage yet, and it's still far enough in the inches away, but I have to strategize here from the side of the Tyranid and see what we can do. And I'll be right back. So I'm going to do their movement, I'm going to do their shoot, and then I'll be back to show you what the outcome is. Okay, so I'm actually going to sum up the Tyranid move because a lot happened there. So the Biovore has moved its 5 inches, and it is now actually in range to be able to drop some shells on the Custodian guards. Also, there is a spore mine that is within 3 inches here, so I'm going to do the floating death here in just a sec. So I decided to keep the Turvagon back, not rush in hand-to-hand combat, and let these guys kind of be softened up by the firepower that's capable of diminishing them, and then maybe the Turvagon will come in to clean them up at the end. So we're going to roll just beside my iPad here with the app on. So floating death, we've read this one a few times before, but for each model in this unit that is within 3 inches of 1 or more enemy units, select one of those enemy units. The model in this unit is destroyed, so it's exploded. Then roll 1d6. On a 2 to 5, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, and on a 6, it's going to be d3 mortal wounds. So we're hoping for a 1 here for the Custodes, and anything higher if you're Tyranid. It's a 6, so that's not good. It's going to be d3 mortal wounds, so we're hoping for a very low roll here, because this could actually kill the Custodes outright. It is a 5. So 3 wounds have been administered, which means that our Custodes is down to 1 wound, and there's only 1 remaining. This spore mine also exploded, so we're going to remove him. And now this Custodian guard is going to be taking on the firepower of the entire Tyranid turn. So I'm going to be rolling that off camera, and I will come back and sum up everything that has happened there. Hopefully by some chance he is still alive. But right now he's going to be facing the Turvagon, the Barbgaunts, and the Biovore. So good luck. We'll see how it goes. That toughness is still 6, so we might be able to survive some of this stuff, but we'll be back in a second, show you guys the outcome, or if this guy's still alive, what he's going to do. And that is the end of the last stand, Adeptus Custodes. So the Biovore was in range. This thing's actually really good. I'm used to just using it to lob spore mines in around the base, but it's got a pretty good attack with strength 6. So it did fire. It fired 3 shots that were successful. However, the Custodes survived that. He was able to save for all of them. And it was actually the Barbgaunts over here. So they got a pretty good roll. They got 12 attacks in. He was able to save all but 1, and that roll of 1, because there's no AP with the Barbgaunts, was able to kill him. So that is the end. Our Custodian Guard has died, but the fight that they put up here, like the Turvagon down to 5 wounds, and I'm going to go over and show you this kill tally because it is absolutely incredible for having 8 models total on the Allied side. They're also the first army to take out the Screamer Killer, so this is their kill tally. Probably going to take a couple of different screens there for the editing for this one, but they were able to kill a whole unit of Ripper Swarms and then a base of Ripper Swarms, 2 whole units of Termagants, so 20 in total, 2 Barbgaunts, a Spore Mine that exploded to try to do some damage, the 2 full sections of Von Ryan's Leapers, the full section of Gargoyles, the Screamer Killer, which has not been it hasn't happened yet. This is the first time that it's been taken out, and the Warlord of the Tyranid Forest, the Parasite of Mortrex. So just to show you guys the kills that 8 models were able to do, absolutely phenomenal. So they definitely lived up to the reputation of being, the Emperor's finest. That usually goes to the Adeptus Astartes, but in this case, we've seen the Adeptus Astartes with a lot more models, Primaris Marines that have not been able to do this kind of kill tally. So absolutely phenomenal for the Adeptus Custodes. And that is it for this one. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Finnigan 40K, Last Stand series. I know I wanted to keep this one short, but they just kept surviving and surviving and surviving, so it's probably still going to be a pretty long video, but thank you for sticking through. And if you're a Custodes fan, well done indeed. Awesome army to collect, to paint, and then to fight with. This is the first battle I've ever done with them, so it was absolutely phenomenal to use them, and they did great. So don't know who we're going to be putting out here next. We will figure that out and be back as soon as we can with another Last Stand series fight. I know that the Primarchs are going to be coming at some point here too, but I'm probably going to put that near the end of the Last Stand series because that's going to lead back into my Fight 'em Up series for the heavyweight class. And I'm getting the Fulgrim model there this week, hopefully. So I'm going to try to put Fulgrim in there for the heavyweight bouts. So there's going to be a couple of fillers in here. I don't want to call them fillers. It'll still be fun for the Last Stand. And then we'll move into the Primarchs, see how they do in here against the Tyranid. And then from there, we'll move into the heavyweight of the Fight 'em Up series. So thank you again. Last Stand series 40K, Adeptus Custodes, kicking ass and taking names. So we'll be back in a while. Thanks. Bye-bye.